This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
Okay, the recording and we're unmuted.
Okay, we're ready to go. How many people do we have joining us? Looks like 2 there, maybe more. All right, well, welcome. This is regularly time and place for the Finance Committee, and we've got quite an agenda today. Thank everybody for coming today. We have one city councilor, not a member of the committee. Councilor Best, thank you for coming, and a whole bunch of folks from all over the city and other places. And I'll just leave it at that for right now. Okay, so what's the committee's desire?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We've got a second, and so any objection? Passes 4-0. And I'm sure I forgot something else.
Roll call, but
Well,
everybody's here.
clerk will note the members present. Okay, so we got some meeting minutes from April 11th. What's your all's desire on that?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes with no corrections necessary.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion and a second. Any objection? Motion passes 4-0. Next item is non-action items, information reports.
Just real quick, Mr. Chair and committee members, I kind of, when we had our meeting for the finance committee reviewing some of the revenues, I kind of presented some of this information. I know Councilor Foster asked me why I wasn't part of the packet. I figured I'd rather bring them back, and since this provides a little bit more information than the one slide I presented to you all. But this is the gross receipts for April. Our actual collected is $3.1 million budgeted. We anticipated 2.6, so we are in the black, $481,000. As you can see there, of course, we're continuing to hover above our last year's collections for April and our budgeted. So we anticipate the trend will continue for May and June. As you can see here, year to date, it's $2.9 million. And we anticipate at this time we will be at 29.1, so we're up $3.8 million. It is following the same trend line, so we expect that hopefully in May, this continues. We're still going to be above, and then we'll see that historically trend coming down in June. But it's all been positive for this fiscal year. We hopefully will break the $4 million by the end of the fiscal year. And that is the GRT report. Just for informational, the budget timeline. So we had our special finance committee meetings May 2nd and 3rd. We will be, the chair and I, we're talking about scheduling additional meetings next week, and no, we'll be talking a little bit more meeting today. So that's just kind of giving everybody some of the benchmarks, timelines, meetings that we are coming up for the budget. And with that, I'll.
Okay, members of the committee, I'm here to present the largest tax update. We have 2 hotels that are almost caught up with their late payments from the past, I would say, last quarter. We launched our largest tax applications for fiscal year 23. Those are due on May 13th. Our total average of occupancy is about 57%, and we onboarded 1 new short-term rental. For the convention or for the lodgers tax collections for this month, which when you see it up there, it's March, but it's really reporting for February. You'll notice that spike increase at the previous finance committee meeting. You guys wanted to reflect when the money was collected. So that's why you see the increase right there. If we go to the next one, this is the bed fee, and then the same thing there. You'll see that spike in February because of those hotels that were past due for 4 months. And I will stand for any questions.
Questions, committee? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and committee members, so here with us is Judge Seski for his presentation on the budget for the court.
Good afternoon. Members of finance, thank you for allowing me to appear today to provide you with our budget. I did submit a lengthy memorandum. I'm not going to read that verbatim, but I would like to go over the contents of the memorandum and some highlights with that. I would like to make an opening statement that mirrors my memorandum. The court does operate with integrity, and we do hold ourselves to the highest standards of performance, transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct. The municipal court respectfully requests the funds being sought they have been asked for after thoughtful, careful, and deliberation, and are determined to be the necessary and reasonable expenses for the performance of our assigned judicial duties. The court budget is broken down into 4 categories. It's kind of how I view it and how I've displayed it here. Salary and benefits, court operations, facilities and building, and corrections. We'll talk a little bit more about corrections in a moment. For salary and benefits, for this year's budget, the court is recommending a reduction of staff. We're going to reduce or not fill 1 current position. The funding that we're seeking for salary and benefits includes the municipal judge salary, a court administrator, 4 deputy court clerks, a bailiff, and 1 court compliance officer. We did experience a retirement of a court compliance officer in November of last year. We did an assessment and evaluation of the assignments and the current caseload, and it does not support filling the vacant position. Therefore, we do not recommend filling it or funding it. There is a current unfilled position for deputy court clerk. We are actively seeking to fill this position in the very near future. Our salary estimates include a cost of living increase of 5.9% effective in July and employee step increases of 2% effective in December. This matches the recommendation as proposed by the city manager. The salary for the municipal judge, if you're not aware, that does not change for the term of the judge, and I do not receive any cost of living increases for that term. Court operations, we are seeking funding. Our line items for court operations include our contractual obligations for engine and counsel representation, court interpreters cost, employee training, alternate substitute judge cost, software subscriptions and maintenance, postage, printing, publications, subscriptions, membership dues, telephones, and general office supplies. We are adding funds this year that we had not been responsible for before at the request of the city attorney. He asked us to assume the responsibility for budgeted monies for the court's legal advisor consultant. That's under a contract with a law firm. Ms. Miller, Gabby Miller is our attorney, and we've budgeted for her cost if the court seeks or needs that resource. Facilities and buildings cost. These are line items for our budget relate to contractual janitorial cleaning services, cleaning supplies, pest control, wayfinding, internal sign security, and furniture and fixtures. Corrections. So corrections is a special revenue fund. I can't speak to the history of it or why it's funded at the level that it is. It's always been that way before I assumed office. But the court has recent history to show that we have not overexpended this funds or these funds that are set aside into this fund. And there could be a possibility for a reduction of the amount of money that's set aside. So in the corrections fund, the money used in that fund is used to defray the cost of the detention center cost or housing municipal prisoners. It's used to provide inpatient treatment or substance abuse programs in conjunction with alternative sentencing and also electronic monitoring, or otherwise known as an ankle monitor program that you might be more commonly familiar with. The authorization for expenditure of those funds is created by statute of 351411 as a statute, and it was adopted by city ordinance in 2009. The amount of funding that has historically been set aside for that is $100,000. Again, we have not come close to needing all of that money, but I would just caution that any consideration to reduce that fund needs to be carefully considered. It is an unpredictable event of how many people might need to be incarcerated or how much money we may need to expend for that fund. There's a lot of factors that go into that. We don't know what cases are coming before the court, and I don't prejudge the cases, so I have no idea what possible sentences may occur that would result in incarceration. I would like to speak to COVID and the courts. The court remained open during the entirety of the public health emergency. We were very early on operate by the Administrative Office of the Courts of the Supreme Court. We filed our operational plans and we were able to remain open and operational. Some courts did not get that luxury. They had to close down for a variety of reasons. The court does send out guidance of how we have to operate under COVID conditions. I would point out that while most of the state employees relax restrictions related to COVID, the courts do not. Our court superintending, the Supreme Court of New Mexico has superintending control over all courts in New Mexico, including municipal court, and they set the policy and guidance that we must follow related to COVID protocols. We are still contact tracing. We are still screening people that come into the courtroom, and we still have mask requirements while court is in session. So we expect those protocols to stay in place for the foreseeable future. I'm at the mercy of them to tell me their policy, but it still exists within the court. I would like to also reference certain sources of revenue and from our fines and fees. In calendar year 2021, we did collect from all sources $139,049. The fees that are collected that go to the special revenue fund, $20 of that goes to corrections. $29 court cost total is collected. $20 goes to corrections. $3 goes to a judicial education fund, and $6 goes to a court automation fund. There are reimbursement opportunities for the court. We are able to apply to the Administrative Office of the Courts for different reimbursements from court automation. And last year we applied for and did receive $18,032 for reimbursement for our software program. I do include some statistical information. I won't repeat that, but it does show capture some information about the court, the work of the court, the hours that we do. I would point out that our alternatives to incarceration are saving the court some, or saving the city some money. So that is an excellent highlight. The court does continue to better use its software capabilities. We're constantly looking at ways to improve our public service and how the court operates. We're reassessing constantly our forms, how we are doing business. Our software is helping us with creating forms that comply with Supreme Court policies and rules. And we continue to receive training and updates on our software programs. And our goals are always to reduce redundant activities and improve court services. We did last year with budgeted monies. We did make improvements and upgrades to our lobby. We reconfigured the lobby, took out fixed bench seating, replaced it with some high quality individual chairs and a desk area in the lobby. This was to comply with COVID distancing requirements and improve the functionality of the space. In our budget, we do seek to update the facility with some new interior paint for the lobby and the courtroom. And we'd like to consider updated signage and public message boards. And I'm exploring software purchases and subscription services in an effort to locate people on outstanding warrants or unpaid fines. I'm looking at improving that process. On behalf of the court, I do appreciate the time that you will take to consider our budget. I can answer any questions about any specific line items, what they mean. You will see in the spreadsheet, I hope that you all got the spreadsheet, that there are some funds that are designated under the court's under the court's budget, but they aren't the responsibility of the court in that the funds are placed there by other city agencies. This is for our telephones, our leases for the computers, the copiers, printers, all of electric, gas. We don't have anything to do with that. That's all Mr. Nebb's shop. They really take care of all that. And I'm sure that the information of what those costs are or what the recommended budgeted costs are, I'm sure they'll be plugged in. I don't want to speak for Mr. Nebb in any way, but historically that's what's occurred. I would like to shout out, since he's here, Mr. Larry Connolly. He did approach the court and bring to our attention our sign out front. If you look out the window, you can see it on the corner, and he recommended that it needed an upgrade and a replacement. And I don't disagree. And I'd like to have Larry Connolly to ask for some funds to replace that sign. So thank you, Mr. Connolly, for that suggestion. Any questions or anything anybody would like to ask?
Mr. Chairman, I'd sort of like to know if Larry wanted to sign because he was having to appear in court. He couldn't find the building because he didn't.
Never know about Larry, you know.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a couple of questions, Judge. Thank you for coming today and providing great details for us today. As I'm looking on the passage, just a question: what is it costing us daily, or is there? How does that work? Look here, the current fee is $75 per day per defendant.
So yes, we are under our current contract, and it's a current contract, but it's old and antiquated and probably needs some update. And we have discussed that. It's $75 per day per detention center. Now, we are not charged if the defendant is held by another court for another matter, and they happen to have a municipal court matter. Magistrate court or district court would absorb.
Okay, so that makes sense as to why the 52
yeah. So you would see
days ends up being about $42.
Yeah, if you did your math, you would see that we're way below because of that. We're not charged, and we watch that bill every month. So we'll go in, and if we see where we were inappropriately charged, we'll bring it to the attention of the detention center, and they'll make that adjustment. But the rate of under the current contract is $75 per day.
The math didn't make sense to me, so I was trying to figure that out. So thank you for explaining that. And then my other question is, where do if you have juvenile defendants that do need to be incarcerated, where are they going to right now?
That's a good question because
I just didn't know if you have any or.
I don't. Juvenile offenses that occur in my court are traffic related only, and they're probably not jailable offenses. Any jailable offenses for a juvenile would be under the juvenile court process. So it would not be something that would be heard in my court.
That's something I didn't know.
Juveniles that appear in my court are for traffic related offenses. So yeah, traffic related offenses.
It's a complicated deal if you got a juvenile that goes to jail, and don't really follow it like I used to, but the police officer or sheriff or whoever has to get with, I think it is CYFD, and they've got a matrix where they repeat offender. I mean, it's a complicated thing, and most always they tell them, turn them back to their parents.
And I know in the recent history, they have closed down a few facilities for holding juveniles. They've just eliminated them in their entirety because they were underused.
So not but 2 or 3, maybe 4 in the state of New Mexico now. The rest of them pulled the plug.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have right now.
Counselor Foster, you have any questions for the judge?
No, thank you for
Yeah, I'm just curious what the revenue side is when you talk about that, Judge, that we don't see what that, because that's definitely an offset against your budget number, correct?
Yes.
And we don't see, I don't see that here.
Well, can you restate your question? That I understand.
Well, you said you received $20 goes in.
Yeah, so when we assess we're required by statute to assess a $29 fee.
Right.
For all cases. $20 of that goes to the corrections fund. $6 of that goes to the judicial automation fund, and $3 goes to judicial education.
Right.
So as an example, in the numbers that I provided you, the 139,000 total from all sources, above and beyond the fines that were collected, not the $29 cost, $83,692 of fines were turned over to the city. The corrections, $33,760 went to corrections, $10,203 went to automation, and $5,031 went to judicial education. When we supply our monthly report, which is due to the municipality by the 10th of every month, we give them a breakdown in our report of where those funds should be dispersed. And then the city initiates an action to send the fees to the state. That's how that works. And then they retain the $20. I'd have to yield to Mr. Fuentes to talk about the special revenue fund and those monies. But again, we do not provide enough money to cover what our actual costs that are taken out of that corrections fund. But again, that's why the $600,000 has historically been there, I guess, maybe as a buffer in case we spent that much money. But again, incarceration is unpredictable.
Right.
So, but I think you could, based on our history where we are, I think you could, if you're looking to not put 600,000, I think you could get away with less. So you just,
Because you put 65,000 into that this year. Is that what that, you talk about detention, or that's the cost? What went in this year? The detention fund.
let me just refer to the right number. So I don't want to misanswer your question. The $65,008.
That was your cost incurred.
Yeah, that's the cost that we incurred.
Right. But how much did the courts put into that fund?
$33,760.
I can't tell you.
Which fund do you want?
So
But can I also qualify that I'm giving you calendar year numbers, not fiscal year numbers? That might,
I'm just trying to get,
yeah.
whether you're saying your 600,000 is the right balance to have in that fund, that you went backwards by $30,000. You dipped into that fund by 30,000. You put in 30.
Well, I don't believe that's accurate because I know my ankle monitor program comes out of that fund. And then my substance abuse alternative sentence monies come out of that fund. So those are the three things that I know that I tax to that fund. I did see a spreadsheet that y'all had from a couple of days ago. Mr. Fuentes, it was a figure approximately $9,000 for one figure. And I apologize, I don't remember the other figure. But those are the three things that we basically hit that account with is
Right.
Those costs, the jail cost, the cost for the ankle monitor program, and then the cost for our substance abuse alternative sentencing.
Right. Well, they're looking for that, Mr. Knapp. You referenced that we do not charge the courts for phones and certain items.
We account for it from that side.
You do. There is a charge to them.
Yeah, if you look at the received from the previous year on the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
that's what was loaded in there for where I say in the margin, funds placed by another city agency, like for building insurance, 1,600, insurance equipment, 1,100, general liability, 200, workman's comp, 225.48, general telephones, 5,500. Those are all handled by IT and I think, Mr. Nip, y'all distribute to the agencies their cost, whatever that.
We just divide that out. It's a lot easier that way, and there's a quantity discount essentially for that by working all the departments together.
Right. So what I'm trying to look at here is also what the total, the received for 2022 is $768,000. We don't have everything in there in the proposed for 23 because those those charges.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll end up taking the judge's numbers, we'll plug it in, we'll add all the other numbers in there, and then we'll get a truer representation of what the final budget looks like. And then we make all the magic happen at that point.
Thank you.
Anybody else? My turn. Okay, Judge, got some questions for you. You mentioned is there alternative sentencing in your narrative, and I probably won't find it real easy about basically house arrest. There you go, house arrest. So how do you make sure those people stay at your house?
So my court compliance officer has a program through the ankle monitor. They can monitor location 24 hours a day. You can geographically restrict the area where the defendant wearing the ankle monitor is. And when they go outside of those boundaries, an alert is sent to her phone. And so she can see a violation. She can track when they're walking or riding a bike or riding in a car. She can pinpoint their location and chart it through a map of their travels throughout the day. So if they're out of bounds of that, then they would be in violation of the court order. And then that would prompt a violation that would they'd be brought back before me.
So do you have your own ankle monitors and stuff? Or do you
Yes, we do.
Back off?
No, we have our own contract with ankle monitor program. It costs us about $4.50 a day for an ankle monitor. There is a shelf. If we're not using an ankle monitor, we do have a shelf fee, but we have an arrangement where we can constantly cycle to have enough ankle monitors available so that we keep a low shelf fee, but we keep enough on hand that if a person needs or requires an ankle monitor, they're placed on it.
As part of that alternative sentencing, they have to pick up the tab for those.
They are charged a fee of $10 per day. And if they're by ordinance, if they're working house arrest, or I'm sorry, if they're working community service, that fee is reduced to $10 per day. So there is a fee that we do charge for the ankle monitor. Sometimes that fee is waived or not considered, but that's on a case by case basis.
Maybe you mentioned it, but I'm kind of foggy today. A couple of times your special fund over there has reached the ire of the auditors. Have we got all that stuff figured out?
Special fund, I'm not.
Yeah, checking account.
My own bank account.
Yeah.
Everything's worked out in my view. I mean, I don't know what.
So
If you have a specific question about it, I certainly can answer it.
How does that money get there, and what do you use it for?
Well, all the monies that we receive from our daily deposits, we place into the bank account. All of our fines, fees, whatever source of
And then
money.
you pay the various judicial education.
No, by statute under chapter 35, the court collects all the fines and fees. And by the 10th of the month, we're to deliver a report. The report is very robust and includes an accounting of all sources of our income or monies that were received by each defendant or each case. It spells it all out. And then we write a check to the municipality for the total balance of those funds. And that by statute has to be done by the 10th of every month.
So do you also cut a check for the judicial education?
No, we initiate I'm going to use the wrong words because I don't know because my court administrator does the work. A requisition, is that correct?
Yes.
A requisition form indicating for the city to disperse the funds. It spells out who the funds go to and the address to mail the fund, part of the packet that we provide by the 10th of every month.
What computer system are you on?
We're a full court enterprise.
And does it feed nmcourts.com?
It does not. We're not part of the state court system.
So if I'm going to do an inquiry on a renter and they've got a lengthy history with your court, I can't defend.
You wouldn't see it at the state court level, but you could come in and request a record through us.
Okay. Yes, sir.
to go back to, and there were, I guess, audit report 2 years in a row that found internal audit deficiencies.
Yes.
Have those been corrected?
Yes.
I won't see that again this year.
That was a question.
No, you should not. And
Okay.
I would comment on that. I'll reserve comment on it. You won't find any deficiencies, not intentional.
Councilor Bass, you have a question?
I'd like to make an observation. So I saw in the paperwork you have 53 on house arrest at this particular time when you made this report.
This is for calendar year 2021.
Okay. 2021, the court issued 659 summons to people that did not show up. Only 85 of those showed up, so you had to send 574 warrants out to the people that did not show up.
Well, that's not, I don't think you're looking at it the correct way. So a summons can be generated any number of reasons for issuing a summons. That's the beginning part of the court process. So if an officer initiates a case where he did not write a summons on the scene, he can file with the court, issue a summons to the violator. Code enforcement commonly sends over a criminal complaint, which initiates a summons. A lot of people comply with summons, so we send quite a few out. Ones that don't comply with summonses, we send out warrants. But there's lots of ways that summonses get issued.
But they're through the court system here across the street. It is written down, court issued 659 summons
Yes,
for
sir.
the year of 2021.
That's correct.
Okay. Only 85 of those showed up when they're summons. To me, that means they have to come into a court at a court date. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure where you're getting the 85 number.
You subtract 500.
It's a different process.
Warrants.
You can ask for a warrant without asking for a summons. So a summons is a preferred process in which to initiate an action, but you can go straight to a warrant. Bench warrants are counted. Warrant can be issued on the bench or an action by the judge, or it could be applied for by an officer. So summonses and warrants are processes of the court, but they're not mutually exclusive. Just because there's a summons and then you see a number for warrants, you can do both.
So how many of these summonses that were sent out did not show up? That's not in the report.
I don't know that.
And how many of the 575 warrants were captured, came in, did their due diligence or whatever?
I could not answer that as well.
That's all. Thank you.
We have a question from the public. Rita, where you can hear us and where we can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Judge. I hope you're doing well. My question for you is, you have a 3-year retention on files. Are you going to expand that time, or are you just going to leave it at 3 years and the public cannot get any records after the 3-year time limit?
So the retention schedule that you're referencing is a recommended retention schedule that the municipal league put out in guidance to municipal courts. My recent conversations with the assistant city attorney, when I researched that process that preceded me taking over in the office, my question was, does the city need to adopt a retention schedule ordinance or some type of a policy or procedure on retention schedule? So you haven't had those conversations yet because this has only recently occurred, but the court has been following the guidance of the 3-year retention schedule. We're not a court of record. But there are records that the court is required to keep for longer periods, such as DWI records. We must keep those for, I believe it's under the municipal league references, I think they say lifetime, but under DMV references, it's 55 years. those must be maintained. And then the other recommendation is our actual databases or our software information that has to be kept for 10 years. So the question is the formality of, and I'm not trying to put the city attorney on the spot in any way. He's probably not up to speed on this, but those are the questions a court are going to ask is, do we need to somewhat codify a retention schedule by ordinance for the court? Because we don't have one now.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I answered your question, Ms. Duoffer. I apologize if I didn't. But the answer is that it's on our radar and we're looking at it.
Thank you for that, Judge.
Mr. Conley,
Judge, that $29 fee,
Yes, sir.
how long is that?
That's set by statute. That's the direction of the court. I can't speak to, it used to be less. I think it used to be $28. And then at some point in the past, it's 26. So I think it's elevated over the year, but that's a process of legislation that statutes direct for those costs.
Is that the same fee that they charge like in Santa Fe or?
So different courts have different fees for court fees. If you're a home rule organization, you can charge more for court fees.
That's all right.
Magistrate court, they charge more. The state court system has different court fees. So municipal courts, $29 throughout the state for municipal.
yeah, and magistrate courts are set by statute like his is.
What does Javits charge?
Huh?
What does Javits charge?
I wouldn't have a clue. I haven't been a judge for 10 years.
Okay.
I don't want to throw out a number. It's 80 something, 80.
But I can tell you from past experience, it's a major undertaking to convince the legislators that they need to change the amount of money.
It's like a business.
So one more quick question, Judge. How much have you availed yourself of the judicial education side of this thing?
How much have I availed myself? Well, I'm plugged in at the state level for the State Judges Association. I'm part of the Judicial Education Committee. I also serve on the board of directors, advising the president of the association for any matters that come up for association business. I've recently been asked to become part of the primary faculty for the UNM's Judicial Education Center. And so I do participate in new judges training judges throughout the state that come in that are elected or appointed. That training takes place twice a year, and then I do follow-up training in September. I'm one of 3 faculty judges throughout the state. I'm also been asked to be a mentor judge for the municipalities of Vaughan, Ruidoso Downs, and Santa Rosa. So I provide advice and guidance and mentorship to those jurisdictions. I pay attention to the judicial education process. I'm plugged in with the law school's Judicial Education Center. I was asked to present at next week's judges conference, so I will actually present a session to judges. My primary specialties are sentencing, probation matters, failure to appear, fine collection, court administration process. That's the subject matters that I specialize in.
Who's running the program out of UNM now?
Laura Bassane is the director of the Judicial Education Center.
Have you ever applied or been to the NJC?
I'm aware of it. My Judge Gallegos from Artesia, she's there now this week taking a class. We've been texting back and forth about what she's learning, and we're sharing information. My schedule sometimes doesn't work out for that process, but I would love to, take advantage of what they have to offer. But I'm getting what I can. Being a part of the faculty, it makes me a better judge. It helps me learn the job much better. I get to visit other courts, see other ways of doing business, and I get to glean good information on what works and what doesn't. So I think it's helpful for us to be part of that process. But I appreciate the ask. So thank you.
I've got 2 certificates from NJC. I find their program to be outstanding, and I was part of the staff out there for a while. So,
Appreciate that. Well, then you wouldn't have any problem giving me more money from my budget for training.
I think there are plenty of grants and stuff.
There are.
I ask if you've ever applied or attended.
I'm aware of those. So, and I will try to take advantage of what I can. But I'm only
I don't know, but
one person.
their special courts jurisdiction course is 2 weeks, so.
Yeah.
And it's worth your time.
I'll take that under advisement.
Okay.
All right. I appreciate your counsel.
Questions for the judge? Any public comments? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
And the reason why I broke protocols, because I think he's got something else to do.
Yes, sir.
So I'd sit here for the rest of this meeting. Okay, moving along. Let's see. We're here, surplus property. Next on my list.
It's our monthly resolution to take care of the stuff that we get rid of.
So any questions from the committee members? It seems like I saw an email or a text where you're having to get people to bring stuff that's already been approved so you can get rid of it. Was that how do you?
Yes. We have to remind people of policy once in a while, and
So how do we fix that? I hate approving something you don't even have your hands on it yet.
it doesn't go on that list until I have my hands on it.
Okay, all right.
It has to be sitting either in the warehouse or in the Lincoln Street yard. Because as soon as it goes on that list, you guys approve it. And then Friday after the council meeting, it goes on the website.
And I've got a question. I think this is more to the committee members, especially those that have been here for a little while. Why do we do these monthly? Why can't we do them on a quarterly basis or half year or this disposal list?
Because we get rid of them as we get them. He sells them weekly.
Well, no, I understand how it works, but I
Put
mean,
them on a quarterly, then that means we'd wait he'd have to hold on to things for 3 months before he could.
well, he can't get them for people because he's sitting them email saying, send me the stuff. So.
We only have a few departments that we're having problems with.
All right.
But
Well, it's just an idea I had.
We used to do it once a year and we'd put it all together and put it out in the field and let it get rained on and ruined and then we'd auction it. But now.
I'm not asking for a year. I'm saying doing it 4 times a year instead of a monthly deal.
Mr. Chair, I know that the council did have a conversation about granting some autonomy for certain levels of the items, rather than to always have to take it to the council. There would be a blessing on the front side so that we could reduce the amount of work that you have to do in order to do that.
Well,
We never got to that conversation, and I think that's how we got the model.
well, it's routine business. I mean,
Right.
I don't want to slow the process down, but I mean, you know, there's a point where you got to kind of trust a few folks to do the right thing, even though you have to.
There are,
about in the head and
I
shoulders.
think we're required though.
There's a state statute that governs how we dispose of property.
Yeah.
And it basically says that, depending on the amount of that is valued, the process is different. And so part of just figuring out, do we go to this process or that process? We have to send it to you guys. Then you guys have to say, yes, that's the correct way to deal with it.
It's very similar to the conversation we had on the property with the housing and everything else. So
I mean, I understand, but I'm just bringing this up for future discussion. I'm not saying we're going to start doing it. I'm just saying we need to think about it because we're talking about this whole list added up and is not that big a list. Now, there are others I know from time to time that are huge. I got that. I mean.
Yeah, because I think we were in the high 200,000 since we started this program. And next month's list is going to have quite a bit of stuff on it because we're getting rid of some vehicles and stuff.
Well.
And it's
Maybe.
It's amazing what we're getting for this stuff.
Oh, I know.
Crazy.
When when I was at the county, we decided to start putting it on the web, and recovery went way up.
Yeah.
Way better than waiting the year.
But
And it turns over and that way it frees us up and gets us the cash sooner.
I mean,
What we try and do is from the time I get it until the time it's sold, we try to do that within 60 to 90 days. It's been a good process for us so far.
well, I understand. I'm just, I'm not complaining about the process. Please, I mean, I understand how it works. I even followed an object. I went physically picked it up, took it to the disposal place and saw how long it sat there. And luckily I picked something that sold in 2 days, so I didn't have to watch it very, very long.
Did you stay out there overnight?
No,
Did you sit there for 90 days?
no.
Okay.
I just said, when that sells, you call me, and that's what I did. Delivered it. I got my little receipt because I didn't want anybody to think the county commissioner was stealing county property. But I'm not even allowed to bid on that stuff, or I wasn't. And I guess I can bid on the county stuff. I can't bid on any of the good city stuff.
I don't think there's any restrictions on it.
Actually, I don't think there is.
You can bid on them. We can.
It's
I got enough stuff. I don't need-
You and me both. My wife says no.
Yeah.
Paul says okay, my wife says no.
See, that was one of the reasons that we went with that third party
I understand.
process, is that way, that part of it is out of our hands.
Blind.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to ever get in a deal where there was nothing. I'm not talking about illegal activity. I'm just talking about the perception, the way rumors go around the community. I'm just suggesting, counselors, don't bid on this stuff.
Don't worry, I won't.
Mr. Chairman,
You've got orders from headquarters. You and Jason, I'm not worried about you.
Jason does as well.
That's the reason we're getting rid of it.
All
Brian.
right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we send to the next full city council meeting on the consent agenda, the resolution authorizing the disposal of certain surplus property, personal property, to include Exhibit A and Exhibit B.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. We got a little off the beaten path, but how do I know? Inquiring minds want to know, right? Even if I go down in flames. Okay, next is,
There are people who would pay to see that happen.
I just want my share of popcorn. Okay, we're here to talk to the library now.
Thank you, counselors. The changes in the Roswell Public Library fee schedule for library materials, to summarize it, if it's damaged beyond repair, you pay for it, and if you lose it, you pay for it. It also includes a new item, which is hotspots. We received this, we purchased these with a grant, and so I'm going to show you what a hotspot looks like. It allows people to access the internet. In there is also, of course, a cord and plug in the case. And so if those are lost, then we would like to get those replaced. And so we included replacement costs for those.
Can I ask a question on those? Is that a hotspot to be used at the library, or they take them with them?
They check this out. They would check this out and they would take them with it. They have to also sign out a piece of paper as part of the grant agreement saying that they would not have internet service otherwise.
Okay. So situation, Mr. Chairman, if I may, situation like when we went through COVID, and it was so unfortunate, we had kids in the school who did not have online access. We had that little boy, just broke all of our hearts to see, sitting in the cold outside of his school, just be able to have Wi-Fi to do his homework with. This would enable someone in the community to be able to take that home and do that.
Yes, absolutely.
How many of those do we have?
We have in our possession 19. We ordered 20. One of them went back because it wasn't connecting. And we're just waiting for fines and fees to be approved so that we can start checking them out.
And how long is the checkout?
The checkout is 28 days, which is what we do for a book. We have the ability to turn it off if it's not returned.
Why don't we have stuff like this when we were in school?
Oh, I know.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just didn't understand what hotspot.
Is.
I expect to unload too, so.
Okay, all right. We're in good company. Go ahead.
So I respectfully ask that this also be put on consent agenda.
I just thought that.
Oh, well, let's see if we can pull it out.
There is really nothing I think that is due for discussion.
Councilor Foster, do you have any questions?
No.
Councilor Hildebrand.
I'm not getting in that hole with you. No.
Mr. Chairman, I will just say that as I started looking at these at first, to be very, very transparent with you, I thought, why are we getting rid of these fees? Why are we getting rid of these fees? But then when I start to look at it, this is very antiquated, very much so. And I'm embarrassed to say that, how antiquated it is. And as I really, really looked at it and looked at your reasoning behind all of it, it seems very rational to me and ready to move up and get with the hot spot.
So I've got one more question that you didn't answer. So this device, when you turn it on, it gives you internet at your house or
wherever you are. Well, wherever you are that is in the Verizon service area. There are a few.
That was the missing question.
So there are a few places in Chaves County where there's no internet service, but when we looked at all the maps for all the service providers, there was no service for anyone in those areas.
Sure. Well,
So when we were looking at what provider to use, we were looking at the provider that had the most coverage for Chaves County.
so how fast is that device? Do you know?
I think it's a 5G.
Well, we're like range 4 in this area.
Yeah, that would be
Got
good.
capacity to move to 5. That's amazing.
But it does have a limit. I believe you can connect it, I think, to 5 devices, but I've used hotspots before. And when it says 5, it really means 3. When it says 3, it really means 1.
I understand how the computer people figure this stuff out.
You say you have 19 of those, excuse me.
We have 19 in our possession, and one of them has been trying to get in. We got this through the emergency connectivity grant fund.
Wow. Is there any more of that available for you?
We are applying for more, and that is, so I've done a couple things. We get state aid, and I got approval that we can use state aid for the service part of it, because we have to pay a connectivity fee. So we have permission to use state aid. We have the American Rescue Plan Fund for libraries, and we can also use that fee. That covers this year and next year. That's one thing we're going to talk to Steve about. And then there's a third wave of the American Connectivity Fund. And we have, because we are considered an urban center, we have an 80% chance of getting it. Those in rural areas get a little kind of a bump up. For that. So we are in the process of applying for that grant also, which would take us through next year if we get it.
That's great.
If we don't, then, I always try to find different ways. I always try to have like 3 different ways to pay for something. When you have, when you get the grant, you want to look at sustainability.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Let me ask a question. I go by and check this out.
Mhm.
I've got it for 28 days.
Mhm.
And depending on the cell phone tower to supply the device.
Mhm.
And right now, the connectivity is covered by these grants, if I understood you correctly.
Mhm.
So I don't know, I'm not going to get into how much it costs per hour.
Good, because I don't know.
Well, if we're not successful in getting these grants, you say you've got 2 years already identified.
Mhm.
And if you don't get the third leg, then what's going to happen to these? You just ship these back to the company or?
We can turn, we own the device. That was part of the grant, was paying for the device. So then we would own the device. After 3 years of the grant, they don't care what we do with it. So we can put it in surplus if we want and sell it. What I think it would be better is to just hang on to it and keep circulating it until it doesn't work anymore. The ongoing cost is the service fee for it. And I have an appointment to talk to you. But I do have several other plans on how to deal with that.
Okay.
No, sir, she did a wonderful presentation at General Services.
Oh, okay. So you got to practice on you guys, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. What's your pleasure, committee?
But one question, Mr. Chairman, before someone makes a motion. I guess the only reason that I hesitate putting this on consent, I know that makes you nervous to even hear it, is you did a lovely job presenting this and the community is going to need to know about this. And so I think that and I promise you, I want it on consent too, because I want to go home for 1 o'clock in the morning. But that is my only, but I think we've got the press here who has just promised me that we're going to hear something in the newspaper about this. Really thinking hard about it. That's right. Okay.
Meeting's not over with, that's what she's promised.
Okay.
I follow what you're saying, Councilor Perry.
But I do.
It's in the hands of the community, a larger segment of the community.
The other libraries that have used this, they have holds for it. So it's very popular. So I think it will be used quite well.
I agree, consent is something for this. Maybe we through our public, whatever department, we do a really good, strong press release and get that information out, because this is a great tool for some folks that really could change their future. Could absolutely change their future. So, all right. I've had enough motions.
Looking at you,
Chair, I move that we consent item for the adoption of this. That didn't give me anything in there.
Resolution?
For this resolution.
Page 32.
Resolution.
Yeah.
Right there.
For a resolution for a schedule of fines and fees for library materials.
I got a motion.
Second.
Got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, any opposed? That's 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay, so now certify Mr. Mike Esposito is here.
Good evening, committee. Evening, right? Good afternoon.
It's closed.
I think it's still afternoon, I'm not sure.
Fair enough. Good afternoon / evening. This is an item from Admiral Beverage Corporation. We've seen it come up in a couple meetings prior to this. We have Keith Hartnett on the line, and I hope we have Peter Kelton, their bond counsel. There he is, because this is mostly his presentation. But I will preface it by just reminding you a little bit how we got here in terms of the procedure. This initially came before the legal committee, starting with a ordinance to do the bond. We followed up with some documents, a lease, an indenture, and a bond purchase agreement. Those are the documents that we're asking you guys to take a look at today. The idea being that the legal committee recommended all of those to the council for consideration, and then the council postponed all those for an additional month. So those are already pending on the next coming council meeting. But we thought we want to bring it back because there's been a lot of discussion about the question of the payments in lieu of taxes, but that's not really realistically a legal issue. That's more of a financial question. And so the thought was that it would be good to bring it to the finance committee for your consideration. If you have any recommendations going forward to the next city council meeting on how to address that. And I think Mr. Kelton would like to do, some of you have seen this presentation already, but I think it's good to just review kind of the background on IRBs more generally. So I will, with that, turn it over to him.
Thank you, Parker. Oh, go ahead, sorry. So thank you, Parker. I really appreciate that that introduction. So I'm going to be reusing a lot of the slides that were used at the legal committee meeting. Towards the end of the slides, we get into discussions about payments in lieu of taxes. I believe that Keith and the mayor have had a chance to discuss some updates to that approach. So I'll hold off on presenting that material and give Keith a chance to explain what the proposal is. But for now, I'll give a bit of a background in terms of what industrial revenue bonds are, how they work, how they're used across the state. And really, it's one of the most powerful economic development tools that are available to developers and companies, and also cities, local governments, counties throughout the state of New Mexico. Essentially, what ends up happening is a developer approaches a city such as the city of Roswell and asks that industrial revenue bonds be issued. Some of the benefits that a developer is going to get will be relating to property tax exemptions, gross receipts, and also compensating tax exemptions. And in exchange, the city or county or the local government issuing the bonds will get certain commitments from the developer, and also more certainty with respect to payments in lieu of taxes and other provisions that the developer is willing to concede or provide in light of the benefits provided by the IRB transaction.
I just want to get something.
Peter, can you hold on a second? We got a question.
Back to that.
Of course.
Back to that schedule or that. My question is that it's tax abatements and exemptions for property, gross receipts, and compensating taxes. Is this for the total construction of the facility and the equipment in there? The gross receipts tax will be exempt from the construction.
Apologies for interrupting. So the gross receipts and compensating tax exemptions would be available for purchases of tangible personal property. Essentially what happens is the developer takes on the role of agent of the municipality or county, and as a result receives certain benefits that a county or municipality might have. Those benefits including exemptions from paying gross receipts and compensating taxes on tangible personal property. As you're alluding to, construction costs would not be included in those exemptions because a county or a municipality would have to pay those just like any developer would.
So they got to pay their gross receipts on the construction.
On the construction, yeah. So does any governmental entities.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. So moving on to the next slide, essentially what happens whenever you're kicking off an IRB is so government body indicates that it's interested in pushing forward with an IRB. Earlier this year, City of Roswell adopted an inducement resolution which indicated that the city was interested in pursuing industrial revenue bonds and issuing or potentially issuing those industrial revenue bonds. Once that has been kicked off, next step oftentimes is the adoption of an ordinance, which we would hope would occur as soon as at the May 12th meeting of the City Council. Once that ordinance is in place, about 30 days later, there would be a slew of different documents executed and recorded. What would end up happening is the developer sells or transfers the project property and all equipment and structures and so on and so forth to the issuer of the bonds. And then the issuer then leases back the project site and all equipment, structures, facility, et cetera, back to the developer. And the developer effectively retains economic interest in these items because at any point in time, the developer is able to sort of pull the plug and then put the property back onto the property tax rolls. But as long as the IRB lease is in place, the developer is exempt from property taxation, but is subject to the provisions contained in the IRB lease. So oftentimes that includes payments in lieu of taxes, which we'll get to a bit later. In addition to the lease, there's also what's known as an indenture and a bond purchase agreement relating to the bonds. The indenture is essentially just a very fancy mortgage that helps in securing the bonds and ensuring that the economic interest in the property remains with the developer, even though bare legal title is with the city of Roswell. And then the bond purchase agreement is simply the mechanism by which an affiliate of the company will purchase the bonds. So it's important to note that the bonds are not a legal obligation of the issuer. There's no money that's actually transferred from the issuer to the company. Instead, it's better characterized as an average or an estimate of how much the developer is planning to invest in the city in terms of developing the project. The bonds are sold to an affiliate of the company, and from there, the lease payments would go towards the repayment of the bonds. The city doesn't have to do anything in terms of managing those lease payments or managing bond payments or disbursements or anything along those lines. Essentially, once the transaction has been closed, the city is able to step out of the way, receive payments in lieu of taxes on an annual basis, and it is able to receive reports on activities from the company or the developer. So this project is going to consist of the acquisition, construction, and equipping and installation of a facility to be located in the city of Roswell. Construction is already underway. It's going to be located at 515 East Brasher Road. The estimated size of the project is $9 million, and that's the size of the bonds that have been requested. Currently, there's 68 employees attributable to this particular location. I believe previously there was an anticipation of maybe 7 additional employees sort of being added as being attributable to that location as well. Maybe not working directly out of that location at all times, but still sort of credited to that general location.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Go ahead.
If those employees will not necessarily be working there, where will they be working at?
I will defer to Keith on that question.
Mr. Counselor, they will most likely be in Ruidoso, Tucumcari, for two areas in effect that they used to cover, but they moved because of the amount of volume that was being done. We would anticipate that possibly about maybe 2 additional, maybe 3 additional will actually live in Roswell.
They're not here, correct?
Now that will be at the time that we in effect open that facility, which we hope is going to be by the end of June. Now, with growth and a variety of other things, we're always looking to grow our business. Potentially, there could be more that would go into Roswell, but it'd be hard to justify that now. I hate to project something that in effect would, there's not a lot of tangible information that would indicate that those numbers would be any higher at this moment, but.
Mr. Chairman, I think that just through this whole conversation, and forgive me if I have misunderstood it, that through this entire conversation from the very get-go, I had understood there would be 7 employees added because of this. And the way it was presented, I understood those would be employees here that were going to benefit our community and that was going to be added to us. I did not realize that this was going to be a value to the other communities as far as employment.
Yeah, the question, I think, Keith, is this going to be like your regional distribution center now that they'll not have those distribution points in those other cities?
Yes, sir. Because we cover and Robert Leva is our general manager. He's basically on the line now. So Robert, if you would go ahead and respond to that, sir.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we will be adding at least 3 driver positions, possibly 4 is what we're looking at. And we're looking at probably 2 more warehouse. So the number 7 is pretty close. It's minimum 5, and we're looking at 6 or 7 more employees added to this location. And you guys, just so you know, I mean, at this point, we're adding 2 employees right now just because of our volume and our constraints we're having with our warehouse currently. So that number 7 is very, very close to what we'll actually be employing.
But employing in Ruidoso and these other areas.
No, these are going to be employees here in Roswell. I apologize for not making that clear. At the beginning of our project, we were employing 65 employees. So we've already added 3 bodies to this location, to our warehouse in Roswell. And we will be adding more. We'll be adding 3 more drivers and potentially 2 more warehouse to that.
You done, Counselor?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, proceed.
So that about summarizes IRBs generally and this project generally. In terms of next steps, what would happen is the bond ordinance would be considered at the May 12th meeting of the Roswell City Council. And then in the event that the ordinance is adopted, there would be about a 30-day period waiting out the statute of limitations for challenging that ordinance. Afterwards, we can proceed to closing, and all the documents should be in place for closing smoothly thereafter. In terms of the documents that are in front of you, just wanted to flag for you that those documents are earlier drafts from about a month ago. Dates will be updated to reflect a June closing, as well as, and I'll let Keith speak to this in a bit more detail because I believe that he's had discussions with the mayor that the term of the bonds has been reduced from the maximum allowed under statute of 30 to 20. And as a result, some of the pilot payments would be adjusted to be for the 20-year period rather than the 30-year. And then after that 20-year period, property would be returned to the property tax rolls, and then it would be treated like any other piece of property in the city of Roswell. But I will let Keith speak more to that.
Okay. The pilot, as Peter has designated, basically comes down to the tax or, the payments that would be rendered. We've had a couple of iterations specifically, and upon meeting with some of the council members, and also yesterday, we had a conversation with Councilman Heldenberg as well as the mayor to identify specifically a negotiation for this particular pilot. We originally started out at 30 years with an amortization of the IRB, which would be at 9 million. And then we reduced that to a point of not amortizing the IRB amount, the $9 million. And then with the multiplier specifically, generally for a previous IRB that our company has done in the past, we were paying a 10% of that assessed value. After our meeting yesterday, we basically negotiated it down to a 20-year period of time, and with the same context of what comparison of costs. The original, and Parker, I don't know if you provided the worksheet that I sent to you yesterday so that at least the numbers could be seen by the committee.
I've got them here, Keith. I'm handing out both worksheets so that they can compare the two to each other.
Okay. Okay.
There's one that shows the 30 years and there's one that shows it over 20 years. So obviously, as Keith is saying, the 30-year one is a larger pilot payment because it's spread out over a longer period of time. But the benefit of the 20 is that once the 20 is up, it goes back onto the tax rolls and is taxed at the full value.
Correct. Correct. So under the when we had it at the 30-year period of time, you know, basically there was going to be a difference where the pilot, the amount rendered would be $460,000 compared to what would have been if indeed it was still raw land of $63,000 over that period of time, for which the city of Roswell and the school district would gain about $396,000 more than what if indeed it was still raw land. At 20 years, that instead is $224,000 more for that 20-year period of time versus 30. And then in the 21st year, it will go at full value. And that would go with the inclusion of Chaves County, because the Chaves County part is not included in the payment rate.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask Parker, on page 57 of our packet, which is page 18 of the agreement, under section 5.10, payment in lieu of taxes. I'm looking at this correctly. It's showing a 15-year, or am I misunderstanding this?
Well, the first column shows the first 15 years, and then the third column shows
the second.
Yeah.
And just as an additional note,
okay. I'm sorry, I see that now. Okay.
That would be reduced to a 20-year schedule as well in the next iteration, if that's acceptable to the committee.
Okay.
Well, Keith, I had a long conversation yesterday with the mayor and Mr. Patterson, Mr. Neeb, and you were at 30, and, I asked that you go to 10, and you came back with 20. And if it took you 30 years to make this pay off, that'd be a bad investment. And at least it wouldn't be on my investment horizon. And so you backed it down to 20. And I bet your internal rate of return, you're going to get this thing paid off before 20. And so that's why I asked you for 15 years on this, because I know when I look at properties and it's a 15, I don't want to go past 15 if I can't get there. And maybe the environment's changed with high rising interest rates and things, but again, I had asked you to go make your best shot. And I'm not against this project. Don't get me wrong. Because you're a good corporate citizen. We asked you about that yesterday. You've put together a presentation of the things that you do for different organizations in this community, which is very appreciative and goes unnoticed by most people in this community. And if you were to put a price tag on what you currently do, and I would hope that you would continue to do that, that number is probably well in excess of $100,000 at what you guys do. Just guessing at numbers. Again, I'm asking you to reconsider the time frame.
I will definitely go to my owner specifically. I was hopeful with the consideration of how we've moved and negotiated this, that in effect that I felt that 20 years was a reasonable period of time, particularly for the investment being rendered in this. And I do believe that I think with the building that we've got there, that I think it's going to be an area that others are going to want to be there, just because you're going to be very proud of this building when you see it. And frankly, one of the attributes that we use or like to do specifically in our community is to facilitate those to have meetings that would like to use our meeting room, to host them, and a variety of other things. So being good citizens and such, we just really felt that this was a reasonable offer to the city of Roswell for this particular IRB.
Okay. I have nothing further to say about that.
Presentation.
Any more to the presentation?
That was everything that I had to say in terms of discussions about industrial revenue bonds and this particular project. But if Keith or Robert have anything else to add, please, I would appreciate it.
The only thing I would like to add is when we purchased the property, it had been sitting vacant for I think 10, 20 years or more. I mean, that it had been for sale. Now that the building's going up, we actually have had some interest in somebody putting in a store there. So it's already starting to, get some traction, and people are interested in building around us, it appears. So that's the only thing I wanted to add.
So councilors, once you're done with discussion, you'll have kind of a couple options here. You can leave this on the table, so to speak, and it will die for lack of a motion. You can make a motion to recommend it as presented in the packet, or you can make a recommendation to modify these documents in some way, such as to amend the term to 15 or 20 or whatever the motion may be. Or so that's kind of our ask here is to recommend something to the city council that they change it or keep it the same or don't do anything with it, whatever you guys would like to do.
Okay, we got a couple of questions. Are you done?
I'll reserve.
Councilor Foster?
I'll reserve.
Hildebrand?
I'll wait.
Good. I noticed in your bill payments, in a previous document, I couldn't seem to find it in this stack.
57, page 57.
Page 57.
Yeah.
So, and you had a slide up there where the bill payments were going?
That was he had a couple of examples of other pilots. I think that's what we're looking at here.
Okay, no, I understand. So I thought somewhere we had how much the school got, how much the
They
city
do.
got.
Yes, sir.
57.
This one is the school, the district, and then the school. And then the second one on the next page is the city there.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
So how come the county's not getting any payment on this thing? General question. I noted that at one point you all went to Davis County with this project, if this sheet's correct, back in 2021. And I guess the land is actually in the city limits. And that runs into the state law that says the county can go out so far in the city, or in the county, but the county can't reach into the city. But so why isn't there Did the county just tell you they're done, or how come they're not included here in field payments?
Because you're a city councilman now.
Yeah.
It's a fairness issue. If you look at the Leprino project, you see the county, and the majority of that money gets used on Omaha Road because of the truck traffic.
If you also look at the county or the Leprino project from in 1990, when 1994, the county got money, but the school district didn't get any.
That was on the first project.
The first project. So
that was negotiation then, this is negotiation now.
So,
and why isn't the county included? Because Brasher Road, just a short ways from that plant, is what you're on when you're moving these truckloads of equipment both east and west.
it's all city. That's all city roads.
No, it didn't.
East Brasher Road is.
No, it didn't. Starts at I think you guys may run
Southeast Maine all the way to
from the close to the jail and the county road department. Brasher goes back to the county, I believe.
If you cross over the east side of Southeast Maine, it will go back in.
Yeah.
And on the other side.
Maine is all in the city.
And the other end, if you're coming off or going to the bypass from Sunset out to the bypass is county too.
I think we manage the road all the way to the landfills. And so it kind of it stretches out there.
And why is the county trying to get the money for the bridge?
Well, the bridge is past the landfill.
Is what?
It's past the landfill. We manage to the landfill, not past.
So from the landfill to the relief route is still in the county.
Okay.
But we have that little stretch. It's almost like going down to the air center where we take in the road.
No, I think I've got this.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm off a couple hundred feet, but I think I'm pretty close.
You're close. Yeah, you're close. Right on.
I'm just curious. That's a question to you guys on the phone. How come the county's not in here for something to help maintain? Because you got to get from your plant to the major arterials, and you can't get there without crossing county roads, I don't think. I guess you could go north or south, maybe be on a US highway, but that puts them coming through Main Street, so.
Well, there may be some confusion, sir, in the context of when we first started talking about the pilot was that in effect that we were only concerned about being able to fund the city and the school district. So that hence the reason why that particular rate. I don't know from a legal standpoint as to whether indeed there is any exposure specifically because the county's left out. That is something I don't have any kind of knowledge about.
So to go to that particular question, there's no exposure from a legal perspective. Whatever pilot payment is negotiated is up to the issuer. The issuer is able to argue that certain amounts should be paid, should not be paid. It's all a matter of contract negotiation. Up until this point, I don't believe that there was a discussion of including a county payment in lieu of tax. My understanding of the Leprino project specifically is that the constant road traffic on county roads and basically Leprino's wear and tear on those roads necessitated that sort of a payment in lieu of tax. In terms of who's actually able to issue the IRB for this particular project, so under state law, the city is able to issue an IRB for anything within its boundaries, and then I believe a 15-mile buffer on top of that. Leprino technically not inside the city, but within that 15-mile buffer. But in this instance, Admiral is completely within the city limits, and the county is unable to go within the city to issue that sort of an IRB. Now, there was a little bit of confusion, I believe, whenever this was first kicked off. The company's first endeavor within IRB was in the city of Albuquerque, which has its own interesting set of laws with respect to who is able to issue IRBs within the city limits of the city of Albuquerque. That's the one instance where a county can issue a set of IRBs within municipal limits. And as a result, that IRB was issued by Bernalillo County for an IRB located within the city limits of the city of Albuquerque. But that sort of scenario doesn't work for other counties.
You're done. Just want to make sure.
I understand the legal requirements in the law, and I also understand that there has been entities that should have been involved in the process, not approved in the past. But when we did the IRB, as county commissioner for the solar project out there, I was the guy that said, you guys need to go talk to the school district. And there's no requirement on that one because it's beyond the boundary of what the city could do. And there's no real cost impact. Actually, the city wins big because all those people had to have a place to stay and eat. And so they came to Roswell to dine and buy stuff. So you got a kickoff on that. But it's just strange to me that not all of the entities that are in the community are being treated quite as fairly under this proposal as in the recent past. It's been required that they treat all the entities with some reasonable justification. Your turn.
Mr. Chairman, the thing that holds it for me to look at moving forward with something is the fact that this is the first time I think since I've been on the council that we've ever handled IRBs after a building. I mean, we're not very far. I know that it's been mentioned that their construction is underway. I don't know when it's expected to be done, but it looks, really.
End of June.
Yes, end of June. So it's not just underway, getting close to ribbon cutting on it. I've just never had a situation quite like this before. The thing I think that makes me to want to consider conversation and get something done. We've got Mike here from the economic development. I don't want to jeopardize any future economic development because we are for some reason seen as not business friendly by not making these kind of considerations. That's where I'm at, a crosshairs of where if it wasn't for that, I think that I just, projects completed. But I don't know if that holds any merit, and maybe Mike can help us to understand that with your permission, Mr. Chairman. But that's what sort of holds me into the conversation of wanting to see something happen.
There's a couple little comments I need to make.
Oh, yes, sir.
Because I observed with the Prano project, it was part of their initial funding package, and they never broke ground till they had all their ducks in a row. And the solar plant out northwest was the same way. They never broke ground till they had their whole package put together. And it looks to me like, and I feel the same way you do, maybe have the cart before the horse on this one. I don't know how that came. Somebody woke up and said, what are we doing, IRB? I mean, there's lots of other big construction projects in town that, in my view, could certainly qualify for requesting an IRB. Don't know if they were going to get it or not. And certainly some of these entities that I'm thinking about hire a whole lot more people right here in Roswell. So with that, Mike, you have something to add to the conversation?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman, you know.
Drop it one more time.
Maybe it'll break. It is an economic development tool. It's the only incentive we have in Roswell, Jackson County, to help a company of any type, whether it's a Leprino, you know, an apple beverage, or a project at the Air Center. It is something to consider. We don't have a disposal of lead money that we can control, as you know, because we haven't even been able to pass that tax. So I would be cautious about this because it could impact our ability as we move forward with other opportunities. I know that Mr. Harnett and the previous mayor and Mr. Neb, myself, and I don't remember who else was in the room. I think Mr. Patterson was as well. But back in early 2021, we talked about an IRB then. And you were on the county commission, sir, Mr. Chairman. And if you recall, they originally came to the county because they felt that it would be a county project. So by no fault of theirs, it's kind of been delayed as a result of different circumstances. Let's not forget that they also had to obtain a liquor license. And because although they're not a by the drink dispenser, it's required by state law. And that took a number of months to get through the committees and get to the council for approval before they move on. So this project really at the very beginning, they talked about an IRB. And the last one they did in Albuquerque was an IRB for their project. So I urge you to consider that if we could help these folks and negotiate what's right for through pilot or PILT, what's right for the city and the county, whatever your wishes are, that we help a company like this and others that will help invest, create a nice landmark in the entrance of our community, which is really a nice showcase to see a building like that shows that we're really a progressive community moving forward. I think that's a really great picture. And the opportunity for other supporting businesses that can help out. Now think about the number of trucks that will be moving in and out there. Well, but there's no truck stop close to that area. And there's a potential for something like that with some other things that you're probably aware of. So I urge you to consider, because I certainly recommend and support the RV for Amber Beverage. Stephanie, any questions, sir? Mr. Chairman?
You've got the floor.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
I wanted to check with legal to make sure if this is something to consider. I know it's not a lot of employees, but I feel that if we are going to entertain, that we tie the employment to the IRB. That sort of, you know, at least gives us that acknowledgement. And I agree, and I hear everything that Mike's saying, and a lot of that does make sense. My concern is for future economic development is really where I stand in that. But if we're capable of tying the employment to that might help a little bit as well. Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
Well, I've got a time frame. I don't know who's responsible for this, but thank you, whoever did it. August in 2020, you were contacted, trust free to. And then July of 21, NAB sent some sort of communication to the city council. And then there was some discussion mid-July 2021 between you two gentlemen. Then shortly thereafter, you and Mr. Harnett, did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
Had a bunch of emails. And then there was lots of conversation between mid-July, mid-August, and August 19th. You did another communication, Mr. Neb, to the city council. August 24th, the building permit was issued. January 14th was the first time that somebody considered the adoption to issue the IRB and it was 8-1. And August 10th, we've got another proposed ordinance. I don't have these documents, so I can't walk through them very well. And April 22, at the city council meeting, it's still not done, and it's in front of us right now, and this is in May.
22.
Yeah. I'm going, you know, I mean, I appreciate their due diligence and staying on top of this deal, but once again, I go back to the other two IRBs, local IRBs that I'm familiar with. I don't know what Bernalillo County or the city of Albuquerque or anybody else does. But I know that we've had a long history with Leprino. I don't know how many years, but it's been a long history. And there was a mistake made in the original IRB that the county wasn't in there. And guess what? The county didn't take care of the road. This was years ago. And there was all sorts of crying. The county said, well, you guys need, whenever it comes time to renew it, need to step up and give us a little something just to keep that cotton picking road that's got 40 trucks on it a day going both directions, not to mention Hobson and East Grand Plains roads, which are county roads. I mean, I was out there watching the project getting chip sealed from south all the way to the highway there, because you can't turn off the Hobson Road anymore. And I mean, I get it, and I'm all for using whatever economic tool that we have in our toolbox. We need to do more of that. We just got to figure out how to build it to have a bigger toolbox.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, Mr. Nevin and I have been discussing a policy for the city, because there isn't one, and I'm working on it now, a draft policy for the city manager and the council to legal consider for adoption that will include not only RFPs, but state LEDA, the application of state LEDA funds, and things of that nature, because we don't have a clear process that we be consistent in applying to every case. That's part, in my opinion, that's part of the challenge that we've had. Once we can establish that, I think we'll be on a better pathway for future projects for Roswell and Chaves County.
Well, I'm tickled that you guys are working on something to kind of get the mud puddle cleared up a little bit.
But we don't go through this every time this come up. And we ought to need to define, I would hope, that when you come up with that you're going to define what economic development is. Because IRBs were put in by the state as a tool for true economic development. And I think Councilor Perry was struggling with our 7 jobs, economic development.
Well,
and so I'm not chastising Admiral or anything, is that you put this before us and there's no precedent, there's nothing here. And I'm sorry that Admiral is being asked all these questions because we don't have that framework. And I'm going to ask Admiral one more time. Is this your best offer to the city of Roswell? Because we do not want to have come out of this committee that we will put it forth with changes that are not acceptable to you. That's a possibility that could happen.
It could, and Councilor,
I'm not trying to make you, Keith, you and I have talked about this. I'm not trying to make you negotiate against yourself. I have expressed my feelings, but that is not the rest of the members of this committee. I'm only one voice on this committee. And so that's why I'm asking you that, because if we come with something that comes out of here and that you're not in agreement with, then it doesn't work for you and it doesn't work for us. And that's what we need to find here, is what works for you, what works for us, and we can get it done.
Okay. I'm going to respond to that, Ed, just because, I found you to be a very reasonable gentleman. And frankly, with your connections and what you've done in the city of Roswell, it's pretty extraordinary. We will accept a 15-year because we would like to get this done. I felt from the very beginning we were competing against ourselves in some ways. And I think a lot of it comes down to much as what Mike had identified is there's not been just coming up with a program and in effect that you in effect are going to have something that's being provided to someone who wants to come into the city and develop their business.
1 to 10 now.
Okay. The thing with number of employees,
Trouble
the
too.
only thing,
15.
sorry,
Going to 15 now. Now he needs to get his rate up.
If I may say something as well, with regards to the 7 jobs, we can't forget about the 30 or 40 jobs we have created in the last 6 or 7 months, and still for the foreseeable future for the next 2 or 3 months as well. I know that the 2 local companies that poured the concrete alone, I think that costed over $3 million just there. And I mean, we have crews out there right now that have been working every day during the week. So I'd like you guys to consider that as well.
And that's
let me add to the comment there, just from the standpoint of number of employees. As a normal course of business, I wouldn't have a problem with having that part of the documentation, but there are 2 elements that create a lot of concern for us. One is the reality of the job market right now. And for a number of you who may be running their own business, I'll guarantee you that in effect, you don't have as many employees as you did before the pandemic. And from a countrywide standpoint, we have lost a lot of employees because they just don't want to work. And I'm very concerned about that. I don't see that changing anytime soon. And then the other thing is the Permian Basin. It has been very flexible, specifically as it has impacted our business there. That in effect, if we're no longer processing oil and gas, in effect, we lose a lot of people. So those are the 2 major concerns. But the first one really is what I'm mainly concerned about right now, because we're having the most difficult time finding employees.
Keith, I don't disagree with that. We have the same problem in every business in this community, that tying you to something that you have no control over, which is the labor pool, might be a little difficult. And so I respect, Counselor, your request for that, and that may change tomorrow.
And Mr. Chairman, it wasn't necessarily a request. It was just a recognition that is indeed a possibility. The company has come back and offered a 15-year. So I think I feel very comfortable.
Well, they've improved the position.
Correct.
And I'm not here to negotiate on behalf of the city. That's not that is these guys' job. It's us to approve or disapprove of this. And that's why I was asking, what are you going to do here? Because we've run the numbers and we know what those numbers are. If this thing was not under IRB, what the total property tax accumulated would be for all entities in this county, including the city. And that number is $100,000 a year. And it will escalate because property value will go up. So what we're doing here, just so you all are aware, trying to get some more fact on the table, is that you're locking this in at a small percentage rate. I don't know what that facility would be assessed at 6 years from now, 7 years from now. I have no idea. But maybe if they wanted to give us a 15% undivided interest ownership of that building, we'd participate. And that would be a little more palatable that the city was now your partner for sure. That we got an undivided ownership interest in your building.
But
it's just different ways to look at things.
Ed, you're a heck of a coming up with ideas. Attaboy.
Well, I've been involved in land development. I've been in law involved in a lot of different things, and trying to look ways for solutions that everyone is satisfied that it's a fair deal, not necessarily a good deal, but it's a fair deal. And that's all I'm bringing out to the table here is it a fair deal for you? And I understand the economic development. I understand what it's done for this city. I understand that it's taken a parcel of land and we've converted it and we've made it a part of our gateway for people seeing this new facility. I get all of that. But the guy working at the convenience store is not going to get why we are forgiving the potential for all that tax revenue. So I'm not opposed to this project, Keith. I hate to be the guy up here talking about this all the time, but I just try to shed some different viewpoints on how to make this thing palatable for everyone. So I'm going to leave the floor for a moment and let either one of you, three counselors, communicate here.
Well, I like coming down. I mean, I definitely like the 10-year better than the 30-year. 15 is more palatable. I mean, because I too know that we were locking in a property tax rate that we have now, and we know the value of not just the property tax rate, but also the value of the property, knowing right now this hyperinflation that we're about to start seeing, it's going to be worth a lot more, and it's going to save the company a lot of money, and we're going to be getting a lot less taxes than we would be getting. Just doing the figures real quick, the 30-year looked to save them about $2.6 million. The 15-year looks to save them half of that, $1.3 million in taxes. And so it's way more palatable because we know in 15 years, in 10 years, if we did the 10 years, it would save them about, it would save them about $900,000.
Which is why I came up with the 15% ownership, but we're going to have it for 15 years.
Yeah. And so we know in 10 years, or we don't know because we can't know, but with what we're looking at, with inflation hitting, this is a good deal, I think, for them any way we do it, because you're going to be saving money. If we walk away from this, there's going to be a lot of money that you're going to be paying in taxes. And I do, this has been a total different IRB, because normally we get all this done before a building, we break ground before anything. And that's one of the things that I'm hesitant about. But I do, the shorter the term of it, the better I like this. I'll put that too, because I don't like tying future counselors' hands in taking large chunks of the property off. I know for several years, Bank of the Southwest, not Bank of the Southwest, the building across the street was off the property rolls.
The old Sunwest.
Yeah, the old Sunwest and the Penn Place was off, and because of IRBs. And, you know, when we saw it come back, we saw some of our taxes come back. As long as it stays out of receivership, we're in good shape. But like I said, the shorter the term, the better I like this.
Yeah. Councilman Perry, let me ask a question. To give you a little background. Back in the dinosaur days, like Councilor Perry happy, when I was in the legislature, there's a.
When he wasn't born yet?
No, he was just
I was in elementary school.
A The Constitution state of Mexico has a mill. That is the total millage that can be put on property tax owners without their consent. And there was a little bit of money left out there that wasn't already going to the counties and the cities. And I carried successfully and talked the governor into signing it. I won't tell you about all the arm wrestling that went on with that deal. And we took the constitutional amount that was left over and gave it to the cities and the counties. And thank the Lord that enough cities and enough counties before the next legislative session came into play. Well, they attached it. I won't say they spent it, but they attached it. And now everybody's done it. And then there was a part of that bill was a clause, and I think it was 5% of property tax went to the assessor to keep the tax rates what we called current correct. And since then, you've heard this story just earlier today. Since then, the legislature in its infinite wisdom has pretty much put a kibosh on raising taxes primarily on residential. I don't know if it attaches to commercial or not. And that's my question. I mean, when you sell a piece of property, then the new owners gets a big tax raise because the new level has been established at that point. There's not anything as current correct. Your local assessor doesn't go out there, although we've got a note here from the assessor assessing what they think that building might be worth, but you don't do that anymore. You're supposed to, I mean, the idea when I was young and naive, I guess, was to keep everybody on the same footing. And then legislature, primarily Ben Lujan, because of the inflated prices of land in Santa Fe in his district, it was driving people out of property that they'd owned for 5-6 generations because they couldn't pay the property taxes. Does anybody know the answer to my question? Does that attach to commercial property too?
I don't know.
So to better bring it square into your discussion, Counselor, was that once you establish it for this, that's where it stays. And then a second B part to my question is, when the RBs are taken over, then is it assessed by the county assessor and then put on the tax rolls of full faith and credit on that day? Or do we roll the clock back to the day that the deal was put together?
My question is this is non-transferable, is it, or is it not?
Yeah, it's not.
The initial IRB for Leprino was with the milk company before.
AMPI.
So they can
decide this. If they were to sell the company in the business, the new owner would, these benefits would inure to them.
Yes. Or at least using Leprino as the example for it has been done. So I would expect that it is still possible to do.
It's assumable.
But I'm still questioning, I mean, my property tax and my assessed value of my home changes from year to year. So I don't understand I understand what the statement that there's not an assessment, but.
It's long ways from correct. But there's other things that happen to your property tax bill. And one thing that's going to fall off next year is the property tax that the city of Roswell presently has that was approved by the voters. So that falls off. And when I was a county commission, we took a mill off.
I'm not saying the tax rate changes. I'm saying the assessed value.
Assessed value changes.
And so there is, yes.
There is a little movement, yes.
I think there might be, and it might be set. I think what you're saying is what they stated was there's only a certain percentage it can change per year.
Yeah.
But it still can change. California's, the statement, the way they hold it is until that property is sold,
then you get the other.
Then you get the change.
Well, my question is, if we do a 15-year, and then it falls onto the regular property tax rolls, is it assessed at the original amount or at the new assessed value at the RV payments?
That will be up to the county assessor.
No, it's got to be in law somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna put an assumption out there with that. So the value of the property will continue to increase every year.
Right.
The IRB locks it in at that rate for that. So when it comes to the 15-year window, it will be at that new rate at that time. I don't believe it ever goes backwards to pick up any of that. But the value of the property is.
No, hold up.
Yeah.
My suggestion is, do you base the assessment on the original cost of the building or the new appraised value?
I would say it's the new one. And I'd say it's that value of that future value of what that property is worth. That is what they're going to base all of that information upon.
Well, and the legal title changes hands at that time. So it's just like a sale in the sense that the ownership of the property moves from the city back to the company. And so with the transfer of the property, then that would trigger the assessment.
Yeah.
But you're right, Counselor. I misphrased. It goes up in little increments. And instead of bringing it up to current, what we used to refer to as current correct, because what happens is you're in a $50,000 home and the house next door sells for $1 million. Then they come back and assess you the same level, assuming the same type of house.
Yeah.
What's
They
on that?
can only raise it so much a year.
Yeah.
To get you there.
Okay, all right. So we've about talked this thing to death. Counselor Best, you've been awful quiet over there.
I'm just thinking the profit they're gonna make off their beverages will cover the cost of their.
Well, that's why they're in business.
Pay Roswell drinks and stuff. They're gonna make a hell of a profit.
All the hands off.
They would.
They're not getting all of
Well, we've covered a lot of, this is serious and we're covering lots of territory. So I think it's an excellent discussion, but are we done?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask legal or want either one. We've got the consideration on the lease agreement, then on the proposed indenture, and then the bond purchase agreement within this. So how would you like this handled?
I think, so each of these documents, assuming that, if I understand the request from the offer on the table from the company is that they would reduce the term of this thing down to 15 years from the 30, but otherwise keep it basically the same. So I would suggest that you would recommend these three documents, each one after the other, but amend the term to 15 years.
Okay.
On each.
I think each one of them has a 30-year term.
Well, okay, I got it. So, all right.
And I'm reading here that they're wanting 20% of what would have been the taxable rate.
Right.
Now, is that the combined land and $9 million building? Because what I'm seeing here is it's just on the $9 million building, not on the land.
Right. As you'll see in the handout, they got the years there, then they've got the IRB value, which they've done. That's just the 9 million straight across the entire period, not the land and not taking account of any change in value. Then the third taxable value, and then they're doing 20% of that generates, then they multiply it up with the tax rate, and then there's your pills.
So my acceptance of it would be if the 9 million and the 250,000 were put in to figure, because we're taking the land off the tax rolls too.
Right.
And so, but now we're trying to figure it on just the building. Well,
The challenge you have is that it's based upon the bonding of the project. And so the value of the land is really hard to work into that equation, I believe.
They're just taking the whole thing, calling it $9 million.
Well,
Yeah.
Right.
But you're right.
The land is included in the 9 million. I mean,
Land's included.
Yeah.
It's not a separate.
And if I may, that's general practice for these sorts of IRBs is to include the value of the land in the total bond size.
Yeah. So I guess what your question was, the land going to stay on or not? But it's not. It's coming off as well, Council.
It's that.
Well, I knew the land was coming off, but the way it was figuring, so I was thinking the building was the $9 million, but they're saying it's $8,750,000, and the land making it a $9 million package.
Correct.
that is correct.
Okay. Perry.
I'm ready for somebody to make a motion. Did you want to do that, or do you? I'm still not
willing to make a motion, but I'm going to tell you what my motion is going to be.
Yes, sir.
No recommendation.
Okay.
That we let the council decide this without recommendation. So I make a motion. Is that okay, Parker?
You can make a motion to refer without a recommendation.
Yeah. And that's what my motion is to refer to full council for their discussion without recommendation.
I'll second that, especially under the consideration that we don't have the 15 year, the numbers for the 15 years.
Is that going to be 6, 7, and 8, 9? Is that all 4 of those together? You putting them
Or
together?
we got to make it 3 times, I guess, as to do it right.
Technically.
So that's on Councilor Best, that's on item 6, making a motion for.
Who seconded?
I did.
Thank you.
May I ask a question, please?
Go ahead.
It's for discussion.
Why would you defer it just to go to the council? Because, and again, it's my instincts is telling me that if the finance committee couldn't make a decision, why would the council?
Because this tax base affects more than just the people I represent in Ward 2. That I believe that these kind of items affect the whole community. And so that's why I moved that way, Keith.
Well, the other thing is we've changed it from the 20 year that you offered, you went to 15, and we don't have that.
That hadn't happened yet.
It didn't.
He agreed to it. But
He
we
agreed
didn't
to it.
change
He agreed to 15.
But we haven't changed
it
anything.
in here yet, and that's the reason why I'm against the
motion.
motion,
Needs to be-
because we need to do 2 things.
Yeah, first of all.
We need to make a motion to amend to the 15 year on each one of these documents.
I got my second now, because my second was on contingent that we had that.
His motion to send it without recommendation is the document you see in front of you.
Correct.
Correct. Intent was to amend it to the 15 year.
Okay, so I'll take that motion. Do I have a second?
Let's get it clear. I need to hear it from Matt as to what your motion is.
My motion is to amend this item from, send it to council, 15-year amortization, as I call it, for this amendment or this item.
So right now we're just
without recommendation from.
Well, hang on. No. This is just the amendment.
Oh, this is the
Let's do
amendment.
the
Okay.
amendment.
an amendment.
Okay.
That way.
So we're amending it to 15-year program instead of a 30-year.
I apologize for calling you Ed instead of council.
No, I tell everybody to call me Ed.
And you, I'll second that. All right.
Okay, so the motion is to amend the document under item 6 to reflect 15-year payout or amortization or whatever you want to call it. Any questions? You clear?
Yes, sir.
We ready for the vote? No further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the motion, any opposed? Passes 4-0. Now, we can do this one of 2 ways. We can also, we have to make amendments to items 7 and 8, correct? And we can do that, and then we can go back and do our recommendation, however you want to do it, without recommendation.
I like to finish. Finish this item.
I think formalist, I mean, if you want to be formalistic, you get the main motion, then a motion to amend it, then you got to go back to the main motion, which is what to do with item 6.
Well, I understand, but My problem is that you got to, I mean, these, you can't separate these items. They got to go as a package. And that's the reason why I'd rather go through the amendment process to make sure that everybody is of the like mind. And then we can go back and approve to move it. But I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't. What's your pleasure?
Yeah, let's finish 6 and we can go to 7.
Okay, because if you do this one and then your motion is to move the city and we don't get it done on 7 and 8, then we're in a real mess.
I make the motion to send, I hate to say 6.
Agreement.
The lease agreement with the amended motion
of 15 years.
Of 15 years without recommendation to the full city council for May 12th meeting.
We got a motion, sort of, kind of.
Yeah, I got it.
You got it?
I think we got it.
The scribe can fix it.
How you guys doing down there?
All fixed.
Do I have a second?
I have a second.
And you have a second. Okay. So the motion now is to approve the amended being the 15 years to the city council without a recommendation.
Correct.
Everybody understand the motion? Have a question?
Just for discussion, I'm going to support it because something needs to get to council. We need to move. We need to get this company. We need to get all this done. I like to try to at least have a recommendation in cases like this because of how the conversation, how busy it's going to be in the schedule. But I'm going to vote to agree with this because we do need to get this.
We need to move it on.
Well,
I agree with you.
And I will make a personal promise to make sure that Mike and the city and the county, and I don't know if we need to rope the school district in here, but you might invite them to the meeting to get a better template made for this stuff so we don't have to make this stuff up as we go along. We've got a basis to get that stuff. I'll make that personal promise to you. Okay, on the motion, any opposed? Passes 4-0. On item 7, what's your pleasure?
Consistent, right? We would have a motion to amend it to a 15-year term.
You have to.
Yes, sir.
Parker's sweating right now.
I'll take care of you, Mr. Parker. This ain't my first rodeo.
Yeah.
And you can see I can make a motion when I need to.
Yes, sir.
Amend item 7.
Motion to amend the indentured, the proposed indentured to Admiral Beverage Industry to a 15-year term.
Okay.
Second.
Now I got a second. Got a motion and a second on amending item 7, the indenture. That's part of this deal. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, any opposed? 4-0 passes as amended. And now we need another motion.
Right. Make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to send to full city council without recommendation, a proposed indentured with the amended proposed indentured for 15 years for no beverage.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Which one? Okay, give it to
Mr. Hillebrand.
It's almost my bedtime.
Hey, we're doing it.
Some slack.
We're getting
right
this quickly.
All right. So the motion before the committee is to send the indenture portion of these documents to the city council without recommendation as amended.
That is correct.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Passes 4-0. One more time, whoever wants to jump on.
Go ahead. You're on a roll.
Mr. Chair,
Something's working.
I make a motion to amend the bond purchase agreement to a 15-year term.
Second.
Okay, and we got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready for the motion. Everybody's clear on the motion. We're amending the bond purchase agreement. Any opposition? Passes 4-0. One more motion, gentlemen, then we'll move on to the next thing.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to send to full council without recommendation the proposed amended bond purchase agreement in connection with the proposed Admiral Beverage Industrial Revenue Bond.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. This is to approve the bond purchase agreement and send it to, I'll get there in a minute. I'm following the proper protocol I was taught back in 1980. So we're doing to send to the council, full council, with a non-recommendation bond purchase agreement as amended. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay. All those opposed? Passes 4-0.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say something to Admiral Beveridge here. I know that there may be some confusion with the moving forward without recommendation, but this gets you to council. This gets you to council and this gets it before the 10 with the 15 years already put in place with the amendment. And the hopes will be that we can get this accomplished here in just a few days.
Well, I appreciate that. I guess, Parker, from a standpoint of the amended documentation, I'm assuming you need that prior to next Thursday's council meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll need to have that ready. Well, we typically would publish the city council agenda tomorrow. I don't know that we can get amendments that fast. So we may have to bring amended documents with us to the council meeting and present them at that time, probably is how we'd have to do that.
Parker, this is Peter. I'll get those to you before the end of the day.
Oh, okay. Well,
Work overnight.
okay. More billable hours, right?
It's like he's tired, he's young, he can do this stuff.
You legal guys, get it figured out, make it happen.
Yes, sir.
I'm on break.
Sent you 15
So
years.
you want like 5 minutes?
Let's take a recess for a few minutes.
Okay. All right, I have a request for recess, or are you guys
Go outside and play.
reasonably happy from Admiral Beverage that you got a fair hearing today?
Well, I'm hopeful that the full council says, let's do it, and then I'll be tickled to death.
Okay. I appreciate your patience and your tenacity to get this thing going. You've been working on it for almost 3 years. So appreciate it.
I appreciate that. You know, again, I think there's, from a political standpoint, it's tough to do. These are not easy to get done, and just feeling good in your conscience to do it. It's just that I think with putting together with Mike has been one heck of a help to us and also to Chaves County in developing things that in effect you have a structure in place. And I think that's a critical path to go. So, you know, again, I appreciate you guys being candid. We look forward to having our building done. And I hope you don't think that in effect that we're just trying to bulldoze something along these lines. You know, it takes time to get these things done. And I really felt like that, you know, we kept those involved with the day-to-day type things. And Parker and Joe have been a great resource to us. And, you know, anybody that may come in and wants to do something like this, I will give rave reviews, because I think it's critical to know that in effect the city is really trying to do everything they possibly can to develop more business in your town.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess. Hey, committee members, don't forget we've got 2 items left on the agenda. I lose a quorum, well, I lose a quorum. I warned them.
Yes, you did, sir. I heard you. The records.
Parker?
Resolution B. And let's see, I guess.
Number 9.
Say it with some energy next time.
We're here on item, where are we now? 8?
Page 138.
Rescue funds, page 138 in your packet. And I guess this is you, Mr. Fuentes? Oh,
Janie.
That's not your name on here.
Well,
Yes, it is.
A little farther.
Background initiated by Janie.
Oh, there you are. Here, let me put an underline on that sucker. Okay.
Highlighter.
I don't have a highlight. All I got's a blue pen. I don't have a red one today. That'll be for a later date. Go ahead.
Resolution 22XX is for approval to use American Rescue Plan Act funds for consumer utility assistance. The city of Roswell received American Rescue Plan Act funds for COVID relief. The U.S. Treasury allows for community economic relief by providing aid to households with past due utility bills. I went in and took our aging report and all of our outstanding and delinquent bills. The calculation is based on those bills, and the date range for COVID is March 13th of 2020 through December 31st of 2021. The final rule limits the coverage to 12 months of arrearages. Currently, the city has 13,919 delinquent bills that fall in this time frame. They total $1.2 million. Limiting each customer to 12 months of arrearages reduces the total by 118,000. So I'm requesting funding of $1,105,252.91 of the American Rescue Plan Act funding to cover these utility bills. It's been approved by legal, and we're recommending the use of that funds to cover that as part of the 11.7 million that we received.
We still have some more coming out of it. We received half and we still have another half coming to us, correct? And the total will be 11.7 in total.
Whatever it is. So this is part of the 5.8 that we presently hold. And the direction, what that attached to the check is, what's the other limitations in that letter have to be used for utilities, you said? What other things can we leverage against?
As far as what the final rule with the American Rescue Plan money, this is one of the primary purposes for the American Rescue Plan. This is why they even started talking about that. So that remained good. You can, for the families, there's small business assistance that can happen as well too. In this case, this one meets the direct final rule for this resolution here, that it doesn't have to be counted as lost revenue. This is money direct that we can put directly to the households. So we determined based upon the review of that 12-month window, these are the accounts that had struggled with paying their bills within that window of time. We held off on doing this for over a year because we were the state has their own funding for this purpose. So we were actually asking everybody to apply for that funding there. The state has closed that program. So these are the remainder of the accounts that can be utilized for this. We will also be bringing forward, I think the next resolution actually is affected by the ability for the city council to consider moving those monies into lost revenue. And if you do that, then you actually open up the uses a little bit farther. So we can only actually determine about 10 million of the 11.7 as lost revenue. So we're asking to use the 1.7 to meet the final rule of what the Treasury Department has established for the final rule of the American Rescue Plan.
So to do Plan B, you have to do a Plan A.
Yes, it seemed to work really well as we were walking through it with legal and everything. So we believe that we have the ability within the final rule to dedicate $10 million of lost revenue, which we've had more than enough of that. And so we're utilizing the 1.7 directly to the final rule of what this use is to help our citizens out directly.
Good. So we would have lost that 1.7 had we not utilized it.
I would have said we would not have lost it, but we would have made sure to have those uses in the final rule to be dedicated to the final rule.
Of lost revenue.
Yeah.
So it would have got consumed, whether we consume part of it here.
We would have found we would find other uses within the final rule that the 1.7 could be used for. We could only move 10 million into, I guess we had the ability to ask for an exception to it, but we felt we have these kind of needs that meet directly to what the rule said. And
tip and toe through the federal regs.
Yeah.
My question to you, I probably no way to find out, to the individuals that you told, directed them to the state, that they were able to get those state funds to pay their utilities?
And we did.
Did you get money directly from the state?
Yes. We offered to have customers come in, and my staff sat with them, went through the process, got them applied online, and we got several thousands of dollars from that.
From the state program. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me ask just an overall question. What is the city's position when a utility bill, specifically the water, is paid by anyone? Does the city have the right to file a lien against that property?
not against the property. We have to go after the actual account holder. So in a lot of cases, we have about 56% of our home housing out here is rental properties. And so we are not able to
attach it
to the property. It has to be directly to the user. And so we have up to 4 years that we can actually seek collections or judgments against those funds. And then we'll do a cleaning of the accounts after a 4-year window.
Right, which just happened.
Right, yeah.
That you did a cleansing.
Yeah. So we have to go after the individual directly for that and seek a judgment against them in order to get their refund.
And small amounts is not worth the time to go do that.
We hope that they stay account holders with us, because then we can work with them on that account in another place. But if they've actually left, it does. The amount, because in 2 months, when we were fully operating within our rules, if you're 2 months late, then you're shut off for non-payment or we seek a payment plan. And so we usually don't have large accounts that are back there. These are bigger now because we have waived the shut-offs for this longer period. So
are we back in the shut-off mode?
We are back in the shut-off mode as of June of this year. So so when you talked about us writing off the uncollectible debt from 4 years previous, that was the first step. We're now in the mode of the COVID related expenses. The next resolution actually deals with some outstanding bills between essentially today and within that 2-year window or whatever it is. So the only accounts that will stay if we have unpaid bills will be from January of this year forward.
Right.
And in June, we'll be doing a big spread of notifying everybody that we will begin the shut off at that window, or at least a notification to work through the process. We don't want to shut anybody off. We want to get them on a payment plan. We want to keep them caught up. So.
And when you look at it, when you're looking at.
I got 2 properties, one next door to each other. I get a water bill for one, but since January, I have not received a water bill on the property next door. And I used to get them both the same envelope. I understand you changed the billing, but I need a invoice, or I need a water bill, I'll pay it. But I have not received it, and it's for 1101 South Wyoming. I paid my one water bill because I get it, but I yet to receive since the January that bill.
I'll have to look.
And it gets mailed to my personal address because it's a rental property, so.
The COVID households, the number of customers is 2,508. So when you're looking at, 19,000, it's not bad. And the number of bills for those 2,508 customers is 13,372. So I also, if we start trying to send them letters that we're going to shut them off, they're not going to feel they can pay that if they're even still here. And, so we've set them up for failure without any help if we don't try something.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, I guess the question for me is what have we started looking at as a process for moving forward? And if you mentioned this, I'm sorry, both my hearing aids went at about 7 minutes ago. So I think I'm getting everything. But if you have, if we have someone that has $700 bill and all of a sudden next month they open up and it's zero. What are we putting in there with that bill, or what kind of education are we going to do for them to let them know this is why this is, and from this point forward, you need to understand it's a pay or cut off situation, because unfortunately, in my opinion, part of what and I understand the need for helping, and I understand all that, but I'm almost afraid that through a lot of what has happened federally, that now we've taught good people bad habits.
I agree.
We taught good people bad habits, and now that has to be rectified.
Well, and what I'm hoping is that our software system, Tyler, can take them off for us, because for us, my staff to try to go in and clear 13,000 bills is going to take forever. They can't do that.
Oh, I've got faith in you. We hired you for a reason.
So we would hopefully get them all taken off at once, have a letter that goes in their envelope, because our bills are done by a third party, going in their next bill where it's clean, telling them, we've cleared you. We're going back to shut-offs now. So you're going to have.
And I feel bad to some situation because, and I say that meaningfully, that we've taught good people bad habits. And now we're going to have situations of unfortunately some cutoffs and.
Well, the other problem you're going to have is none of them are going to go down to zero, because it's just to December. So if they haven't paid January, February, March, April,
right,
that's still going to be there. And that's where we're going to get the thousands of calls with having to get them, okay, we're going to shut you off, or we got to get a payment plan going.
Right.
And so that's where we're going to.
Tyler can't make those phone calls.
Yes, that's where we're going to need.
And I agree.
Probably, even if we need to hire temporary people for a short time right there to get that done. Because there's going to be an influx. And then you're going to have the regular people like Ed, who's like, I haven't got a bill in 5 months. I want to pay it.
You're not on my list.
I don't, because my January. The other thing is, are we required to issue them a 1099 for forgiveness of debt?
Oh, geez, where's the count?
If you forgive a debt, that is what legal.
I actually just read that on the final rule.
Okay.
And it's not taxable. We would pay the gross receipts tax on it, but it's not a taxable income.
Okay, thank you.
So,
because that's the next thing, you'd be issuing 1099s to all these people. Like, oh my God.
Well, the only way to get that is come back to work with us, right?
So, Chair, another question I have on here is the wording. We're requesting funding, it should say up to the amount of, instead of just of, because there's going to be an influx of payments. And I know from a personal case, I know from a personal case that some of it's off. And so.
You're proposing an amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Well, before is that kind of?
We don't have a motor, but it's.
On the resolution.
On the resolution.
Yeah.
You're saying where it says
Allocate up to,
Yeah.
because that way we're not tied into, it's left, I'll guarantee you it's left.
because some people.
You're just insinuating something and not exactly saying.
So I'm perfectly clear. Should I make sure that's up to. So I thoroughly understand your motion. In the third whereas, it reads now, whereas the city desires to allocate 1 million plus, you're wanting to insert the word up to.
Yes.
Okay.
First, we need a motion.
Okay, that's a motion to amend.
No.
Well, we don't have a motion yet.
You can amend before you do the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make.
You concur with that, really?
Yes, sir. I believe you can make a motion to amend the resolution that's before us.
I agree. I don't have my book with me, but I'll show you next time we get together if you really insist. Do I have a second for this motion?
That's the first.
So me.
Make the motion.
Yes, I'll make that motion. Okay. That motion being.
That the words up to between the word allocate and the dollar amount of $1,105,252.91.
I'll second that. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be cantankerous.
Yes, you are.
Proving it.
We're doing things a little different than what we're used to. And so I'm just trying to make sure,
Well,
especially for the minutes we've got that.
There's more than one way to get from here to your house, right?
I take the same way.
Well, I know you handicapped.
All right, so you got a motion, a second. I want to go home.
Got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those opposed? 4-0 passes. Okay, now back on the discussion. And I have a question before we get there. So basically what we're doing, we're taking this 1,105,000 and some change, and we're gifting it to them, and it's not tax deductible on your income tax form. And so there's going to be a balance left because this is 12-month period before. So what's the plan of getting these people caught up on their past due bills and keep them current on the present bills going forward?
The remainder of the COVID time for the 118,000 that I mentioned in the abstract,
right,
is on the next resolution.
Okay. All right. So we're back on. I have a motion on the resolution as amended.
Make a motion that we send to full council consent agenda.
I hate consent agendas, but whatever you want to do.
It's going to get full if you put it in.
Then I make and if there's somebody who wants to pull that, let's just do it. Yeah, let's make a motion that we send to full council the resolution of the city of Roswell approving the use of the American Rescue Plan Act funds for customer utility assistance as amended.
A motion. Got a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those opposed signify by throwing something, yelling, screaming, jumping up and down.
And that was with recommendation.
Yeah. Okay, passes 4-0. All right, next item number 10. Are we up to 10 now? It's like it's so dadgum heavy, I can't get it turned over fast enough.
This resolution is to consider approving the use of American Rescue Plan Act funds of lost revenue to cover COVID or pre-COVID delinquent bills, the COVID arrearage from the other resolution, and 12 months of and businesses with delinquent bills. The city received American Rescue Plan Act fund for COVID. The U.S. Treasury final rule allows for a standard allowance up to 10 million in lost revenue. Once converted to lost revenue, the city has the discretionary oversight on how to use those funds. I'm requesting 206,000 up to 206,581.02 in lost revenue funds to pay pre-COVID delinquent utility bills. That is there. 1,428 customers and 1,508 bills. 118,120.53 of lost revenue to pay COVID delinquent that were the 12 months over the 12 months of rearage allowance. That's 157 customers for 547 bills. And then 91,706.72 in lost revenue to pay delinquent utility bills for businesses. That's 114 businesses with 679 bills. It's a total of 416,408.27 to cover the remainder of the COVID, the pre-COVID, and the business bills, and the staff believe that the likelihood of payment on those is slim.
Okay.
I stand for any questions.
Okay, so I guess comments, questions? And so ready for an amendment?
No, I got conversation.
Okay, go ahead.
Trying to understand. So this 118,000 for lost revenue, which is item 2 on the request, is the same dollar amount that was in the first that you were not going to collect and then you were going to leave out.
That's above what the utility assistance program allows. They only allow you 12 months.
Right. And so this brings them all the way up to which is maybe, going to take them to January, February, March of this year.
It's going to take them to January this year.
January, they're not going to, it will, including January, it'll pay the, just through December. Okay.
Because the previous is just 12 months.
Right.
And COVID was March 13th of 20.
Right. So this takes it from 12.
December of 21, so that we had several months.
Okay, I understand now.
Okay. Any further discussion? Do I want an amendment?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a amendment to where in the fourth, whereas the city is requesting up to semicolon.
Okay, got a motion.
Colon.
Well, I guess.
Put on your glasses. I've already.
Oh, it is a colon, by golly.
I wrote over it.
Okay, so I've got a motion.
Second. Yeah.
Okay, we got a second. Any further discussion on the amendment? Any objection to the amendment of adding the words up to after the word requesting and before the colon? Hearing none, 4-0. Back on the
Chairman, I make a motion that we send to full council a recommendation to approve resolution approving the use of the American Rescue Plan Act funds of lost or lost?
I've corrected that.
Okay, of lost revenue for customer utility assistance as amended.
Got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, any opposed? Passes 4-0. Now we're to public participation. We have anybody still online? We'll go to them first.
Sleep up there.
Oh. Anybody online want to discuss anything, ask questions, or just make a statement? Okay. Anybody in here? We've just got one person in the public sort of kind of. Don't know where you, huh?
Larry Collins.
Uh-huh.
I've heard a rumor that there was a group of citizens out there that thought they saw that. And they promised that they will kneecap any city person, council member, if the council meeting goes later than 10:30.
Larry, they will not.
I'll vote for
If they
that.
do, they will do it without me.
Yeah, I'm out the door. This is just,
We
I don't
will
know if
adjourn.
we need to move up to 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock.
I'm with you.
I'm bringing my meat pads just in case.
Mr. Chair, do you want to address the special meeting?
Oh, yeah. Guys, but and Councilwoman Bess, I don't mean anything. I talked to Mr. Fuentes this afternoon, and we're going to have lots of special meetings, to get this budget put together with the inclusion of, there's some discussion of having a special city council workshop on the budget on the 23rd. There has been discussions, and then having a real vote on the 27th or maybe the 26th. I'll lobby the mayor to move it to the 26th to give everybody a chance to digest it, because as you members that have been here before, it's a very big document. And we've still got to make decisions on which way we're going to swing on this thing, or just adopt what's been proposed. That, by the way, is $4 million plus out of balance. So we've got some real thinking to do. Monday, it would be my desire, with your approval, to go over the estimates that's contained in the documents that we've been looking at and adjust those if need be. And then also, depending on how long we have those discussions, that day, continuing on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. And the other thing that I've asked Mr. Fuentes to do is to make sure that we understand that revenue that's already encumbered. So that comes off the table. We can't do anything about that. We need to be aware of it, obviously, but it comes off the table. And then we need to have a discussion. The second thing that's really not open for discussion is the requirement to make payroll. Now that can be adjusted if we take away positions or add positions, FTEs, what you all call it here. And we need to start making some decisions on that. So please come so we have a quorum.
Give me the dates and times one more time. I'm putting it in my calendar now.
May 9th.
May 9th and 10th at 4 o'clock. We'll start at 4 o'clock and go till you guys wear out. And I don't know, we'll skip Wednesday because we all probably going to need a night off by then. But if you look at the calendar, Councilor Perry, are you going with me over to Las Cruces?
No, sir. I ended up taking care of everything in Santa Fe.
Ed, help, Ed?
No, I did Santa Fe.
You, Councilor Best and Councilor Rapesa.
Okay, we're going to be gone the 16th, 17th, and 18th. So please try to keep your calendars somewhat open for a meeting on the 19th, because we got, and I know we're going to be here the 20th if we don't get it done on the 19th to wrap this package up. And also, if you can, keep your calendars free as you can in the afternoon on the 12th and 13th, because we got about the length of this table to travel and we got the width of it and time to do it. So we're going to have to step it up.
12th, I've already got at 4 o'clock.
Okay, so the 12th's out.
City council. That's city council day.
Yeah.
Council.
I know, but.
We don't care about it.
Council up until.
Well, we can meet after the city council meeting.
Yeah, we can.
Not if it goes till 1:30 in the morning. Man, Larry's on a roll.
And quickly, so we can.
Y'all, see the necessity for getting this done? Okay.
Absolutely.
And we're adjourned.
65.
I gotta go.